And good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today at the uh, webinar hosted by the Ministry of Trade and Industry. This morning's webinar is entitled Financing Opportunities for MSMEs for Digital Transformation. And my name is Tracy Hackshaw, and I am the host and moderator for today's session. For those who would like to know a bit about me, you can follow me on LinkedIn or on Twitter at @thackshaw. So to start today's session, just want to give a few brief introductory words. Now, we know that the World Economic Forum and indeed many other global agencies have identified that the COVID-19 crisis and the political, economic, and social disruptions it has caused is fundamentally changing the traditional context for this decision-making. The inconsistencies, inadequacies, and contradictions of all of our various systems and institutions, from health to financial institutions, to our energy, to education, to business, everywhere, is now more exposed than ever amidst a global context of concern for our lives, livelihoods, and the planet. Our business leaders and our government leaders and generally everybody now find themselves at historic crossroads, managing short-term pressures against medium and long-term uncertainties. And we've seen quite a lot of data coming out from the United Nations, from the IDB, from the World Bank, from the IMF, about the challenges that we face as a small and developing state, Trinidad and Tobago, or region, Latin America, the Caribbean, in fact, the entire world in 2021 going forward. And this pandemic has fundamentally redefined how and where we do business. The concepts of digital transformation, digitization, you name it, for so long has been a mantra of a certain segment of the global economy, part of the economy that we know as a digital economy. But this digital economy, these concepts are now moving fully into the mainstream. As a matter of fact, the World Economic Forum forecasts that by 2022, as much as 60% of our global GDP will be digitized. So the question that we're asking ourselves is, how can MSMEs participate fully in this digital economy? And that's what we're here today to discuss. Today we have two key representatives from the Governor of Trinidad and Tobago under the public sector umbrella. We have Ms. Karen Caraballo. She is NEDCO's Chief Entrepreneurial Development Officer. Ms. Caraballo has over 20 years experience in entrepreneurial and business development. She has a passion for changing dynamics and the empowerment of people. She's a certified financial advisor with a wealth of experience in developing and implementing growth opportunities in existing and new markets. Her expansive qualifications include a master's in public administration, a bachelor's degree in business management, and certificates in credit risk management, compliance, risk and responsibilities, and change leadership. So she's from NEDCO, the National Entrepreneurship Development Company. We also have Mr. Christian Maraj. He is the manager of the Capacity Building and Programming Financing Unit, which is at exporTT, which is responsible for delivering services and initiatives to reduce constraints companies encounter when attempting to export or to enter new markets. This unit is also responsible for the administration of grants and funding to companies. He's also responsible for the management of exporTT's Tobago office. As a member of staff since February 26, 2009, Mr. Maraj is focused on ensuring that exporters have export-ready operations with export-ready, internationally competitive products and services. Kristen has work experience in various areas, including marketing, finance, and professional development. He has a bachelor's degree in information systems and management and a master's degree in business administration with a specialization in entrepreneurship and innovation from the Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business. So I'd like to welcome both Ms. Caraballo and Mr. Maharaj Karen and Chris into our discussion this morning. And I'd like to welcome all of you, all our participants today, as well as participants from the Ministry of Trade and members of the media and everybody else who is joining us this morning. Couple house rules before we begin our discussion. If you're asking questions, please post them in the chat, and please ensure that when you post those questions, they are sent to everyone. Just ensure that you click on the tab that has, you may be seeing a name there. Ensure that it says everyone so that everyone can see the question that you're asking. And it's not just one individual that sees the question. We're not likely to take verbal interventions. So I encourage you to use the chat to comment and to post your questions accordingly, and we will take them as they come. But I will moderate the way it's being asked. And just to let you know that we're having two presentations. First, we're going to have Ms. Carabeo, and then we're going to have Mr. Maharaj. But in between, we'll be able to take some of those questions on each of the presentations. So without further ado, I'd like to now introduce and ask Ms. Karen Carabeo to join us in presenting her contribution to this morning's session on financing opportunities for MSMEs for digital transformation. Ms. Carabeo. Ms. Carabeo, I believe you might be on mute.
Sorry. Yes. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Board of Directors and Management and staff of NEDCO, it's my pleasure really to be here to share with you all. Thank you, Ministry of Trade and Industry, for inviting us to be part of it. And we have also worked with exporTT, so I also look forward to hearing the other presentation as well. So this particular topic is very important to us, and it's more so, and I like the fact that Mr. Hackshaw noted that this is something that we have been discussing for a long time, asking persons to come on, get the mantra of let us digitize. But the COVID-19 pandemic has forced us more than ever now to push to actually have this to happen. So earlier this year, when our country was locked down, first lockdown, and there was a call for the essential organizations only to be opened, then it defined a lot of new spaces, and it defined and a lot of challenges came for a number of places. So for instance, with NEDCO, our physical offices were closed, but because our service was essential, all our staff, we worked remotely. And essential being that the entrepreneurs that we serve, in terms of what they provide in terms of the GDP or even in terms of their own revenue, it was essential for us to continue servicing them. And that brought a lot of light to us. And therefore, this particular session by Ministry of Trade is even more critical and its importance, because we recognize during that time that a lot of our entrepreneurs, our clients, could not continue business because they lacked that digital service. They didn't have that to be able to continue business. As a basic thing as the digital technologies or devices, having your email contacts so that you can email contact with your clients or to have a database with them, having a website up or having a social media presence. So for them, the physical space, not having enough physical space was the only way of doing business. And when they didn't have that open door opportunity, it prevented them to continue business. And as such, we have a lot of clients or entrepreneurs overall, even outside of NEDCO, who would be in a situation where they are still trying to recover from that period of lockdown. And even now, when business open to the doors, there's still limited business because of the way in terms of how we have to transact or we have to meet it has, and customers are more cautious of movements. So therefore, I mean, what we say now, the whole process now is opportunities. How do we change how we do business? How do we improve? How do we look at our processes? And thus, this opportunity by Ministry of Trade that they presented, the financing opportunities of MSCs is critical because as NEDCO, our services, we provide business financing, we provide business advisory and business training. And I'll go more into that later. So when we look at digital transformation, exactly what does it mean? It's really the integration of digital technology in all areas of business. And it creates a change in operations. And all areas will be from the frontline staff in terms of how we do customer relations, what is the digitalization process we have there, from our marketing efforts to our distribution efforts, our supply and chain logistics, right? Even in terms of how we receive and we make payments. Once we have these processes in place, it's the various technology that transform the entire operations. It makes it easier for us to access business or conduct business, I should say, at any location. And that is what is critical, and particularly to our sector, the MSEs, who may have looked at that, or even with advice given, may have said, this may be costly, or this may be not important. I am a sole trader, I'm a one-man shop. I know my clientele, I have the information in the back of my head, and then forced with a situation where now you could not conduct the business as you normally did. Now you're forced now to look at way and restructure, or even particularly sometimes some of them, the particular services that they're doing now have become to extent obsolete. And so we need to now relook how we do and what are the needs or what are the opportunities that lies out there. So the digital transformation will now look at how the processes and technology that will change the entire operations and the delivery of service to your customers. The impact of COVID-19 was seen across all sectors. So they cannot say for any clarity that there's one particular business that would have failed. What we would have seen is other particular organizations would have been able to pivot faster. Pivot being in terms of being able to change, restructure, grab at opportunities, and excel, while others would have been slow lagging because they did not have the processes in place or the technologies to allow that change. So let's look at, for instance, retail. A lot of business were closed and we said it's non-essential. So we would have visited when we opened for business and started doing as NEDCO. We started going into our clients to visit with them to find out exactly what is their status, because part of our mandate is really the development of entrepreneurs. So you're going to come into NEDCO and you're not going to simply just come and get a loan. Our mandate is to promote growth. And so in doing that, we felt that it was a need during the lockdown time, like I said, to call each one of our clients, call them, find out, get their status, find out where they are going, what are their needs, offer whatever support services that we can, right? We were challenged during that time in contacting some of them because basic things as their contact numbers, they were not responding. Emails sent out, they're not responding. And that tells a lot in terms of how do you do business? Because a client, even under normal circumstances, if this is your business contact information, there should be a period in which how soon that you respond to your clients, right? And so therefore there's a need in terms of what are the e-commerce technologies you need to put in to continue business at all time. Manufacturing. A lot of factories were suspended. They had to be, in terms of the number of persons who could have been on the compound at a particular time, the sanitation of it. At the same time now, we have to look at what are the opportunities that we can now have. Would you reopen the business? How do we change our processes? What are the, like for instance, Angostura, at one point, as early as possible, they started presenting the sanitizers, right? A number of organizations, in terms of what they were producing, started looking at what are the needs and what are the opportunities at that point in time, and starting to provide those services. Government agencies also, to extent, some were working on rotation, or some offices were closed, and it limited. And we recognize most importantly, that these organizations were very, in terms of getting services, was critical for persons to be able to conduct businesses that impacted all over. For instance, we have a lot of clients in NEDCO who would be in the food industry service. And as of right now, one of our requirements to get financing for anything in the food industry is that you must have a food inspection, you must have the badge, health inspection, and you must have a food badge. These entrepreneurs are now challenged at this point in time because the particular offices are not renewed or given new food badges or health inspections at this point in time, not being conducted. How do you now continue providing a particular service in that area? Do you look at another type of business? Are we the financer who is saying this is your requirement? Are we to relook at how we provide that particular service? Now, if it is that, or even for the organization, the particular ministry that is providing that service, are they now creating technologies now that they may not necessarily have to do the inspections as was previous, to allow that the persons who require these services are not obstructed because of the new norm in way we do things. So what we really have to do is really look at the way we do business and allow the opportunities and allow the process, the whole transformation, how we do things, to not limit growth within our organization. And I want to say too also that even we refer to the pandemic now as a crisis, but if we relook, there have always been a number of various crises. We would have had recessions that would have changed the way we do things, right? So we need to also, and there's a possibility there could be even another pandemic by a different name in the future. So the digital transformation is critical in terms of using this time to upskill ourselves, to upgrade our businesses, and to use the technologies that was there to allow the business continuity and to allow growth. Right? One of the things I have noticed a lot, at one point in time, there was always the Uber, the drop-ins, the rent, the transport areas that you could have purchased and purchase items or mostly used to get from one place to the other, where you will call a vehicle to get you there. Now that has been more utilized in terms of purchase of retail items. And there's been a growth in that particular business. There's been growth in terms of most people who are doing or making face masks. Some of them are making them also in terms of the decoration of it. And even in terms of the travel agency, while we are not doing external travel agency, there's an opportunity now to push in terms of the Trinidad and Tobago, within Trinidad and Tobago, in terms of where are the tourist areas, where are the places that you have not gone, is an opportunity for the bread and breakfast persons to now market their space and create the spaces that persons could come now and feel safe within the ambience of your home. So saying all that in a nutshell, I would say digitization is no longer an option, but it is necessity. And in terms of digitization, there are We call it the 5 Ds of digital transformation. The digital technology. Digital technology is the marketing technology that businesses use to create interactive experiences from websites and mobile apps to in-store kiosks and email campaigns. Right, and then we have the digital devices. That's what we are accustomed to. We are accustomed using our mobile phones, our tablets, our TVs and gamings. But sometimes what we do, sometimes we have these devices and we don't use the full service of the devices in terms of what can be done. So we need to really look at what the devices that we have and how, when we use it within our business, how it can be used to transform our business. Digital data. Digital data is really the insight businesses collect about their audience, profiles, and their interactions. So that is very critical. And we always say about record keeping. So in NEDCO, we provide a number of training programs. I mean, this digital transformation program is something that we will be doing in January. And record keeping is something that, and as we say, digital data, has always been a pet peeve with our entrepreneurs. A lot of times, entrepreneurs don't understand the importance of retaining data. And if it is you have it digitized, it makes it easier for you to be able to now to see, analyze your information, and be able to and be able to make quicker decisions in terms of your transactions and in your interactions with the various stakeholders. Selecting the right digital platform is also critical. Most interactions on these devices are through a browser. For instance, we are doing this particular webinar through our Zoom. There are a number of various platforms that can be used for you to conduct. There's the Microsoft Teams, there's the Google Meet, there's a number of different platforms that can be used and for you to be able to interact with your clientele. And of course, once it is you put all this together, you're in a better position in terms of being able to create the transformation that you want. And of course, you look at your digital media, different paid, owned, and communication channels for reaching and engaging audiences. What is the media that you will be looking at? Your emailing, your messaging. How do you communicate with your audience? Is it that through WhatsApp is the better place for them, emailing? So we need to also look at the holistically, right? In terms of what are the digital transformation, and I'll repeat, digital technology, your digital devices, your digital data, your digital platforms, and of course, the digital media makes up the digital transformation process. And what are the benefits of going digital? What it does is increase savings. So we've had some entrepreneurs when we have been doing our feedback and interactions with them and saying that yes, the change has worked in their favor because there has been a lot of cost savings in terms of some of them they may not be renting a space anymore and they can operate their business remotely, conduct their transactions with their clients. They would have set up payment methods, e-commerce payment methods. And so they therefore have been reduced in terms of the travel time, the rental space time to be able to conduct their business. It has improved digital. It improves productivity, flexibility, and infrastructure control. It also enhances sales and customer relationships, right? And that will come particularly in terms of your customer relationships. If it is you are maintaining your digital data, you are better able to identify from an eyes and a hand finger point of view when your client purchase information on your client in terms of when, where, what are their likes, and create trend analysis in terms of their needs. And you're better able to make decisions in terms of promoting particular products or services that will quicker meet their needs. At the end of it, sometimes we had to look and say, can I still survive with the new pandemic? And my response would be, do you want to survive? We are all, if we look back personally, we are all faced with a number of challenges at all points in time. There are always disruptions. And the things with disruptions is that disruptions are opportunities for new growth. A volcano erupts, and yes, it destroys, but at the end of it, there's opportunities for sometimes new land formation, new shapes, spas, mud spas, and different other things. And we have to look at, so it's a time for us to to upskill. Look at what are the needs out there. How can I change the way I do business? How do I improve? And we start to look at what are the tips that we can use to survive. Do I seek financing, right? Would the financer want to do business with me at this point in time? Am I credit worthy? Sometimes we ask ourselves that. At NEDCO, we will invite our entrepreneurs to come in and have a conversation with us. It does not mean that if you walk in that because you may not be provided with financing at a specific point in time that you are turned away. Our services in business advisory and training is where we will work with you and engage with you in terms of where your business are. Look at how your business may need restructuring. What are the talents and skills that exist within you and within your space that allows opportunity for growth? We have the business training. So there may be a need for upskill and to retrain, right? There you may need to renegotiate with your suppliers. Look at your whatever contracts that you have with them. How can you extend, how you may be able to get a moratorium period? Look at your expense. Maybe look at cutting your non-essential costs. The things are no longer important, where you can get cost savings from using the digitalization process. Protect your income and limit cash flows, right? Cash outflows. But a lot of times, sometimes we have to look at where there are lapses or where there are leakages on things that are no longer critical for your business growth or even for personal growth. Increase communication and stay connected with your customers. And this is very critical. The business of the walk-in customer and depending on a walk-in customer cannot be the only way to do business. Clients must be able, or persons who are interested in your product or service should be able to contact with you at various forums. So therefore, you must look at whether you have a social media presence with a response time, a satisfactory response time, whether your product information and so your product or service information is out there that persons who are seeking, who are searching, who are using the various search engines can find your information and can contact you for follow-up and feedback on it. Another thing we're saying is building network. So I am happy for all those who are here and participating on this, that the opportunity in terms of sharing with you and engaging in terms of what are the products and services there, finding like-minded persons or synergies within your business process. One of the things we also do in NEDCO is that we have a particular program that we started pre-COVID, and it's called the Business Accelerator program. And the intention of that particular program was to engage the entrepreneurs within the tertiary institutions, past and present, and they will have to be recommended by these tertiary institutions and work with them from moving from simply the academic entrepreneurship to a more practical entrepreneurship and working with them. And through that, we have been able, that particular program is identify within the group various synergies and networks. Normally you would have find a lot of networks created by particular expos, like earlier, I think it was last month, the Trade Investment Convention hosted their online forum where there's opportunities for a lot of B2B business as well as networking with entrepreneurs to encourage them. And these forums like this one is very insightful and important in terms of where can I find the synergies to extend my business, where along my supply chain logistics that this can be used, where can I find cost savings, where opportunities to find marketing. The networking is very critical in terms of business growth. Monitor your customers' changing habits. And that is, I'll go back again to having that digital data. The digital data makes that analysis of your information at your fingertips by paying attention to pulling your reports on what is your clients are buying, at what time of the period they're buying, how much they're willing to spend. Innovate, manufacture new essential products and services. So what I've mentioned earlier, how Angostura immediately got on board and started preparing the hand sanitizers, and a number of other organizations would have changed in terms of what their business focus was to meet the current needs. And then we also create needs that we have the drop-ins, all the various transportation services that would have been challenged by not having been able to carry full capacity transport, but now we're able to use their vehicles for another service in terms of providing that service for retail products and services purchased. Look at your human capital, right? One of the things we recognize too is there has always been the call in terms of some businesses, whether or not we can retain all our, maybe the space that we operate from cannot host if we have to look at the COVID protocols to behold. But a lot of businesses can continue operating remotely from within your space. So you can also, of course, have the staff rotations. So to manage that. Of course, initiate your online banking, your transfer payment options, right? And that cannot be, underscored. Even prior to COVID, a lot of the banks were pushing against having customers come in to do particular transactions, and was encouraging persons to have your online account, right? While there may be some transactions that may still require you visiting the bank, it is critical as an entrepreneur to have that online account and encourage even your clients to have that so that you can do business with them. Introduce your go-to windows and delivery services. So you see a lot of business also have where persons may not necessarily have to come into them, but you can find a way to deliver their service. Or you have, what's the term they use again? Oh gosh, I can't remember what. You could come in and you collect your product or service at their organization at the front door. So I'll repeat again, NEDCO, our 3 core services. We provide business financing, training, and business advisory. So business financing will be for first-time borrowers is up to $250,000. Repeat borrowers can get up to $500,000. And coming into NEDCO for financing, normal business in terms of lending protocols. And that is, you must have your utility bills, show proof of location, your ID. But what will make us different, other than the quotations, is that as an entrepreneur, you must be registered, right? And we will push for registration of your business, and particularly with the type of business that you are going into, that you have the various licensing and approvals to support it, to support your business training. We offer a number of training programs, specifically geared on based on our experience and our evaluation assessment of the needs of our clients, from know your taxes to costing and pricing to marketing for SMEs. And like I said, we are looking to do a training on digital transformation in January 2021. And we would look at, and we also work with organizations in particular who, based on their need, will create programs specifically based on the need that you have requested. And our advisory services where we will work directly with the client, do an assessment of you, do your structure, assist you with your business planning, your costing, at all areas. And critical to this particular time, we have recognized that there's a far more need for us to work with our entrepreneurs on the business training and the business advisory, that's the upskill part, to ensure that these organizations can survive this period. Right. So I've noted in terms of our application process for loans, your statements, your bank statements, your bills, receipts, your financial statements. And we will work with you to ensure that once your application, once you're credit worthy, and if you're not at that point in time, if there are issues, our support services through our training advisory would work with you to get you there. So we have had currently a number of loan promotions that we're working on targeting specific sectors. For the restaurant, food carts, bakers, food packaging and beveraging, we have a loan package right now to help them reboot their business. They can access up to $30,000, and with it, it's a payback period of 36 months to help these entrepreneurs to be able to get things in place to ensure the business continuity, right? We also have a package for our hairdressers, our barbers, makeup artists, nail techs, another package up to $15,000. And this, we recognize there's a need for this particular sector to put things in place in terms of sanitization, proper storage, to make the persons who come into their establishment feel comfortable and want to do service. We've also been working with the mechanics, right? So we will find that, and a lot of we have found a lot of entrepreneurs who do this type of business, mechanics, car dealers, straighteners. There's a need for them to make their space to meet with COVID protocols. And we are inviting them to come into our offices, meet with us, and within that space, being able to get the financing they require, to get the support services that they require, to put their space in a way that allows the persons who are coming into them feel comfortable and safe. So we're working with all various sectors of Trinidad and Tobago. Our branches, we have 5 branches. And in Central, it is situated at 81 Southern Main Road. And the East, in the East, it's at 135 Eastern Main Road, Puna. In the North, the branch is in Queen's Park East, which is the NIB building. In Tobago, we are situated in Glen Road, Scarborough. And in South, we are at 45 Independence Avenue, San Fernando. We can be contacted by our phone number 821-5800, or you can email us at training@nedco.gov.tt. We look forward to hearing from you, because particularly, like I said, to this webinar on financing the digitization transformation. NEDCO is open and ready to serve you. Thank you. I'd like to pass it back on to Mr. Hakshaw.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carabeo and NEDCO, for a very comprehensive presentation, both on the digital transformation of the MSME sector and some tips and some tricks, as well as some information on what's available for MSMEs in terms of NEDCO's product and service offering. I did promise that I would, before moving on to the next presenter, that I would facilitate a couple of questions at this point for NEDCO specifically. And I'm seeing a few coming in in the chat. And the first question came from Wendy Ann Douglas, who asks, how much collateral is needed and what is the interest rate for business loans? I would also maybe, we could ask that, could link that question as well to a question coming in from Chad Ramirez, who's asking, what is the maximum loan amount that NEDCO would facilitate? Probably could answer that, a double-barreled question, Ms. Carabeo.
So for first-time borrowers, our maximum loan would be $250,000. For repeat, we go up to $500,000. Right? Our loan interest is 8% simple interest. I think it was another part of the question you asked again. I think that was it.
That's about the collateral. What's the collateral?
Oh, collateral. Okay, so we try to meet you halfway, right? So our interest, our collateral at minimum is about 50% collateral. But the good thing with NEDCO is that we work with our entrepreneurs and that the loan, the assets, based on the particular asset, it can also be used as part, we evaluate that as part of our collateral as well. So I'll invite them to come in and have a discussion with our officers so that we look at what it is, what are their needs, and how we could make that financing possible.
Maybe I could just ask a question on that basis. Does NEDCO offer virtual consultations as opposed to in-person consultations?
Oh yes, we are doing that. So that's the new norm, right? So we are even doing our business advisory, our business training virtually. So I put the email address there, training@nedco.gov.tt. They can contact us there. And we are even, in terms of uploading documents, we will respond to that where they can even email and upload, and we can have a session with the persons virtually, yes.
All right, fantastic. That's good. That's great news. And I think that's very inclusive for people who, may have some challenges, not only with the pandemic, but also transportation and so on.
Correct, correct.
There's also, I don't want to necessarily spend all the time on the questions at this stage, but there are a couple of questions coming in relation to one I saw about training. Is it available only for clients of NEDCO, or is it that it can be open to everyone?
It's open to everyone, right? The mandate of NEDCO is to serve entrepreneurs. So therefore, any persons who seek or interested in our service, we will even work with particular organizations who want to work with their clientele. We create programs particularly with them. Our next training, like I suggested, will be in January. We recently had our New Year taxes within the early part of this month. We're in December already, November. So we had our New Year taxes training in November. We also had a costing and pricing in November as well. Right, so we look forward to the opportunity, and it's particularly in this time, the training and business advisory, our support services is more critical than ever to our entrepreneurs.
Thank you. And seeing quite a few questions coming in on what exactly you're able to provide support for. So I noticed in your offers, you have service industries and so on. Like, nail tech and, hairdressing and so on. There are some questions coming in and asking whether there are loans available for things like seedlings, production. Somebody wants to find out if can you finance a new software platform that assists business with digitalization of their supply chain management. Another one's asking about the clothing industry. And specialized equipment, if they're looking for specialized equipment. So is there some sort of cap or parameter around what NEDCO can finance, or is it, give us some idea of what NEDCO can
Right.
finance?
So I will let you know what we do in finance, right? So then we'll say we finance everything else. Okay, so we would not finance the agriculture because there's the ADB as a government agency. We will have to, we are mandated to particular businesses, and there's already the ADB, so there will be a mixing of various business. But what we do is finance the agro-processing. So for those who are interested in and doing the upstream products coming out of that, yes, we finance that. We do not finance the gambling organizations, casinos, right? And we do not finance full like bars or alcohol establishments, right? So the other businesses, they can come into us, meet, and we will go through in terms of what are the requirements for the loan. And like I said, basic requirements will be your forms of ID, your business registration, your various authorizations that you need for lend for your business, your quotations, and our interest rate is 8% simple interest.
And I think, I'm sure, Karen, you could take a look at the chat as well when we head off to exporTT. But there's one question here that just came in that I think is quite relevant to what we're discussing now. Someone is asking if in the creative sector, or I guess in overall, let's say the digital economy, can they use their software or the digital assets as collateral? And that's a very interesting question. Would NEDCO evaluate and use that as collateral? Is that possible at this stage?
When I say digital asset, right? It's the thing with using collateral for us it would be an asset that one has let's say a serial or a model number and also has a market value, right? So because at any day, an entrepreneur is we are taking a risk just as the entrepreneur is taking a risk. So the collateral that we hold would be something that where the loan goes in default, it can be used. So where we look at assets, as some assets, it may not be assets of a quantity to allow for collateral use. So we may have to look at cash collateral in some circumstances.
All right, so thank you very much. I think that was pretty clear. And just to reconfirm the interest rate, you had said 8%, right?
8%. 8% is not 8.5. I'm seeing the question here. So
all right, great.
If we have, because I know Mr. Maraj has to go in, if we have time after him, and that allows us to be able to answer more questions, I will look at that and see if I can address questions once given time.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Karen. So now that we have, I think, addressed quite a number of questions in regards to NEDCO, exporTT is export-focused entity within Trinidad and Tobago operated under the Ministry of Trade. And they also have a series of financing options available. Their grant options, they provide support for loan financing in terms of advisory services and a wide gamut of opportunities. So, Kristen, I would probably want to turn over to you now. And of course, as we focus on digital transformation, perhaps you could, always give a sense of how this is specific to the digital economy. And may I ask as well, especially I think some of the slides might be have some small text on it, we can go into presentation mode so that we can see the slide a little larger. Thanks, Kristen. Appreciate it. Over to you. Thank you. Unmute. All right, go ahead.
Yep. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Hackshaw, Ms. Caraballo. That was a thorough presentation on everything that NEDCO offers, and there's a lot there for participants to engage with you on. It's a lot, and I assume we'll be sharing these presentations. So I might pass on some to our clients as well, pass on this information. Thank you to the Ministry of Trade and Industry for giving exporTT the opportunity to present here this morning. So what I'm going to present on is the financing. Well, when we say financing, we do funding at exporTT. We don't do loans. Everything we talk about, everything I present on, would be grant-based. So we don't ask for repayment such as financing. However, there is like a counterpart contribution that companies need to bring to the table for these services. So we're talking about digital transformation here. So I will run through everything that we offer at exporTT, but we'll bear in mind that this is for digital transformation. And we have found that companies are in fact pivoting. I realize pivot is the buzz phrase in this pandemic. Companies are doing it, and some of them are doing it very well. We're not seeing only horror stories. We're actually getting some good news from companies who actually have increased sales during the pandemic. So bear that in mind. It is not doom and gloom, and agencies like the Ministry of Trade, NEDCO, exporTT, we are here to help you along. So what we do here at exporTT, one of the services we offer is the co-financing facility. Co-financing is funding that will offset some of your export-related activities. We realize that there are some hurdles that companies face when trying to get into the export market. So something new that was added to what is offered in co-financing is the first-time website development / e-commerce platform for current and potential exporters. So we have companies out there. We have some of you all who would have your business. You might have a social media presence, but you don't quite have your website up and running as yet, and you don't have e-commerce functionality. So we can offset some of that cost up to 50% to a limit that I'll get into for this new development. So I'll just mention as well that this co-financing also offsets costs for product and company registration in overseas markets, intellectual property registration, product testing, shipping of samples, any modification that you might need in terms of your labels and your testing. So how it works is that, now this morning we are talking to MSMEs. So for small companies, there's a limit of 35,000 that you can access from the co-financing facility. So you can think about this like a drawdown that you will have for the year. So our fiscal year starts in October. You have 35,000 that you can access various co-financing services. 50% of that to a limit of 35,000. For the medium companies, and the definition is there on the slide, they can access up to 45,000 in the same manner. So we also have the Research and Development Facility, RDF. That is there to instill and stimulate innovation within companies. So this is to help companies enter export markets by introducing innovation into what they do, be it a new product or a process innovation. And actually, I should correct myself there. It's not just product, it's services. So many companies who have accessed this RDF were actually digital-based services, ICT-enabled industry companies as well. So how the RDF works is that there's a phase 1 that you can access, which covers up to 70% of the total cost of your phase 1 of the project, which is to establish technical merit and to have a feasibility study in place. So you will have this upfront to know, listen, is it financially feasible and technically feasible for me to engage in this new product or service development? This phase will help you with the cost of that. So it's 70% to a limit of 100,000 for that particular phase. For phase 2, companies can access 50% up to a limit of 750,000 TT. for the actual development of the product or service. Now, I should mention that this covers technical costs. It doesn't cover infrastructure nor equipment. There is something else for equipment that I will get to a little later on. So companies can access, you can send in your application and apply for a phase 1 or a phase 2 of the RDF. There's a phase 3, which is commercialization. You cannot apply directly in a first instance for phase 3. Phase 3 is commercialization of something that was created in phase 2. So that was included as well, and that has a limit of 150,000 that companies can access. So I spoke about equipment. Now, and I think a question came up in the chat about equipment to increase production, because you're going to change the way you do business. You're going to go online. You're going to be targeting new export markets. There should be a bigger customer base for you. And you want to improve your production, increase your productivity, your production capacity. This grant is there for that. So companies can access 50% of the cost of equipment to a limit of $250,000. Now, this is solely for equipment, except for, on the slide you'll see we highlight software design and applications. The software design and applications, these are for companies in that industry. And it covers the acquisition of software as well as hardware to do that kind of work, because for that industry, that is your product. That digital creation is your product. So it covers these sectors, which include creative. I see there was a question about animation as well. It includes creative as well as software design and applications. So again, I'll reiterate, that is 250% to a limit of 250,000 TT for this equipment. So these are some of the sectors that are covered by it, but I think everyone who was registered, because I ran through the registration list, everyone who's registered here fall within some of these sectors that are covered. However, you need to bear in mind that for the grant fund facility, this is for companies who have been registered and have been a going concern for at least 2 years. And you need 2 years audited financials to verify this point, that you have been a going concern for the last 2 years. Now, I spoke about the audited financials, and this is very costly for SMEs. So through the co-financing, we can also offset the cost of getting your financials audited for the purpose of accessing financing, not just from exporTT or Ministry of Trade, but through any bank or other agency that has the financing solutions for you, but they require the audited financials. So bear that in mind. We could help you with that with the co-financing. So there is the standards implementation grant. Now, this is here to help companies meet the standards for your product or your service to enter export markets. So as we pivot here and you go into the export markets and you get a bigger audience via online interaction, you need to be cognizant of the fact that there are different standards for different products in different markets. And you stand the risk, if you don't comply, you stand the risk of your product just sitting on the port. And if it's perishable, like food and beverage, you lose your batch, basically. We will work with you at exporTT to make sure that we give you the capacity building support to know what you need to enter those markets. And we also provide some financial support through this grant to access. So on the slide here, I have some examples such as good manufacturing practices, HACCP, the various ISOs for your organization. It's not limited to what you see on the slide here, because there are different standards for different products for different markets, and we'll give support there. So companies can access 50% of a total cost up to 50,000 TT. However, you can bear in mind, based on the size of your company, the complexity of your production, the number of product lines that you have, and the type of standard you need, this has been readjusted to a limit of 50% to 120,000. So the base that you could access is 50% to 50,000, but based on your criteria to enter the market, based on kind of quotations you get and the going market rate of some of these standards you need, you can access 50% up to 120,000 now. So we have some of the criteria here for the standards implementation as well. Similarly to the grant fund facilities, this is for companies. Actually, everything I spoke about is for companies, because at exporTT, we work with companies who are potential exporters or are existing exporters who want to increase their exports and expand into new markets. So we look at companies who have been in operation for 2 years as well to access this standards implementation grant. We also ask for the financial statements to verify the claim that you have been in operation, functional, generating revenue for the last 2 years. Right, and there's something that we have in the works right now, and I don't know, I'm going to speak about this, but it's something that we did not implement as yet. It's in the works. We expect to see this roll out early next year. So innovation vouchers. So what this is we present lines of credit for companies that they could use with public and private knowledge providers for innovation in your production or your delivery of your service. So how it's going to work, what we proposed, and we still, I just want to reiterate, this is tentative because we still have to take it to cabinet. We propose that small companies can access 100% of the cost that will be incurred to a limit of 200,000 TT. So that's like a line of credit at 200,000 to pay your providers. Medium companies, 80% to that limit. And for the large companies, I don't think we have any large companies here in the seminar this morning, they can access 70% to a limit of 200,000. That's what we have in terms of the financing and the funding that is available. But we do a lot more at exporTT that can assist. We assist with research. We have a market research department that can help you determine what the markets are that you should be targeting, the performance of your current markets, and perhaps new ways that, well, market trends that can influence your innovation in your processes as well as your delivery. We also have a training department that provides export-related training for everything, including what we have on the agenda is to include this sort of digital transformation training as well. So actually we look forward to getting some input from you. You can put it on the chat for what you might want to see covered in training programs. We're talking about like half-day programs, half-day to one-day programs, specifically for digital transformation. Right? You can give us some ideas on that. And of course, the Ministry of Trade and NEDCO, they also have great training programs along these lines that could assist. What's different between NEDCO's training and exporTT's training is ours is more targeted to exporters, to exports, and to export-related activities. Also, we have the export promotion department. So we take companies on trade missions. We do business-to-business matchmaking for companies. Since the onset of the pandemic, we have been doing these virtual missions. We have at least 10 virtual missions next year. And within these missions, that also includes business-to-business matchmaking that we could assist companies with. And that's something I advise some of you who are ready to engage with potential buyers in overseas markets to keep in the loop with us on. And you could keep following up with exporTT.co.tt. You could follow our social media on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And we have constant updates on what we are up to at exporTT and how we can assist companies to begin exporting. Oh, I should also mention for the grant fund facility for equipment, though I mentioned everything we do is for export-oriented work, for the grant fund facility, companies can also qualify if you are import substituting company. If you produce a product or service that customers would typically import, that will also make you eligible to apply for the grant fund facility. So that's where I'll wrap up my presentation today. This is my contact info on this slide. And like I said, please continue to follow up with exporTT through our website and our social media. And yep, and we'll keep you in the loop as well through our outreach when you sign up for our mailing list. So thanks again.
Thank you very much, Kristen, and thanks exporTT for again a very comprehensive, as you indicated, not just, well, not financing per se, co-financing, but also funding opportunities, primarily grant funding, as well as some, support in terms of, what MSMEs can access, including training and these other facilities that would help with export-related items, including goods and services. There are already a couple of questions in the chat. And just to remind everyone, some people are posting questions to me directly. It'll be great if you post it to everyone so that everybody can see it. Just click on the tab when you see two and select everyone to ensure that everyone can see the questions, including our presenters. There actually is a question already for both of you. And let me see if it was answered already. There's another question coming in fast and furious, and the chat is moving too quickly for me. Hang on a sec. All right. There's a question here from Sarah, very early o'clock. She asks if the funding or support, and I think this could be for Kristen, but maybe NEDCO could answer as well. Would it be for existing businesses only, or would it include startups? And I believe by that she means businesses in less than 1 year or maybe 2 years in startup mode. Kristen, maybe you could start by answering that, and perhaps Karen can respond as well.
So for the funding that I spoke about for the exporTT, no, it's only for the companies that have been established. So, I mean, yes, you can be a startup, you can be new companies, but we still need to see the fact that the company is a going concern generating revenue before we open eligibility to access some of these funds.
Okay, for NEDCO, we do funding for startups. What I would encourage someone to, if the person was looking to go exporTT, because we do have that relationship, that I will encourage that the person would go first as a startup, build your business, be able to get the support in terms of your national exposure for your product or service before you move across. If you're looking to go to export, and exporTT takes you to another level where they will provide the training to make you export ready and all the other services and financing for there. So there's a synergy between starting with NEDCO and then moving to export.
And actually, I have a question for you. This is a little bit out of the chat box, and I promised I would have asked you a couple of questions.
The hard questions.
Yes. How would you respond to the government's approach to have a tech investment startup fund, or tech startup investment fund, I should say? Do you think that's something that exporTT and NEDCO would be supportive of? And if so, how would you think something like that might work for businesses who are in the tech industry, in particular, who are trying to support MSMEs and other local companies? And I know it's a tricky suggestion, because it seems as if it may be along the lines of a venture capital or some type of other approach. But do you think that something like that would work in Trinidad and Tobago? And if so, how would something like that work from where you sit based on your experiences?
Okay, I'll go first. I think, if we're looking at that, I think there was a question earlier in terms of how do we look at collateral for this particular industry, right? And where it is someone is interested in starting a business like that, and they don't have the collateral, and the fund is there to give that guarantee to that particular entrepreneur, then that will be suitable, because at the end of the day, there is a need for us to encourage support in technical entrepreneurship as well, and particularly in terms of how we are doing business right now. So we will have to look at exactly what is the quantum in terms of the amount the fund would want to support. We have to develop in terms of the processes, the criteria that will, for the person to qualify, and the various requirements. And if that is placed by the government or NEDCO to deliver, then we will have to put things in place to be able to provide that funding service for them.
Christian, do you have any response?
Sure. In terms of what we have on the cards for exporTT right now, the innovation vouchers would actually speak to the tech startups as well. But again, I am speaking in future tense because we still need to get the cabinet approval for that. In terms of, and beyond the presenters and agencies represented today, though, Caribbean Export has a angel investor network. And I know companies who have accessed investment, tech companies who have accessed investment through that network. So I would also want to plug Caribbean Export. Check out their website and see what can be offered for tech startups there as well.
Thank you, Kristen and Karen, for that. I think that's a very good response in terms of, what we need to do as a country to get into this sort of, I guess it applies across all sectors as well. If you're getting involved in the industry and you're not necessarily a tech startup, but you're getting involved to do something online, maybe that's something that fund could also be dedicated towards, because at the end of the day, you could be earning foreign exchange, earning revenue, utilizing the online tools and the transformation imperative that's built within something along those lines. There are quite a few questions. I saw Karen answered it for NEDCO, but an interesting number of questions. I'm keen to find out what the thinking is. There are a lot of questions coming in on whether or not NEDCO and exporTT will fund businesses who are registered in Trinidad and Tobago, but not necessarily owned by citizens in Trinidad and Tobago. I think that's a very interesting nuance here. And I saw Karen was very specific in her response. Maybe she could reiterate, and then Kristen perhaps, maybe let Kristen go first since Karen answered in the chat, and then Karen, you could follow up with your
okay.
Yeah, Kristen?
So just to make sure I understand the question, we're talking about companies who are registered in Trinidad and Tobago, but the ownership is not local.
Yeah, not necessarily local. Yeah, that's
all right.
Some of the
So, yeah. So, no, it has to be at least 51% locally owned, and it has to be a company registered in Trinidad and Tobago for all the services, except for the grant fund facility, which is actually a Ministry of Trade facility that we administer, and we provide the financial arrangement. For the grant fund facility is companies who are 100% locally owned.
Yep. I saw the question goes on, and Alicia asking whether the CSME agreement makes persons automatically residents, and the answer to that is no. You need to be, you have to be a resident. So in NEDCO, the questions does ask is whether or not a person who has a registered business in Trinidad and Tobago, but they are non-nationals, if they can do business. Like exporTT, we are cabinet approved. So therefore, the persons who are coming to apply for the loan, at least, even if the company is registered in Trinidad and Tobago, at least 2 of the directors or the owners of it should be either national citizens or residents, because they have to sign for the loan. right? Other than that, we would not be able, if they are all international or non-nationals, we would not be able to grant them that finance.
Yes, and I think that's a very good point in terms of, I mean, I guess I understand the thinking, because if you have directors in a company that may be mixed and or ownership structures that, for whatever reason, I guess each company has its own rationale, that may not equate to 51% within the local industry or local sector, then the possibility of funds, I guess, going out of Trinidad and Tobago, having been loaned or financed within Trinidad and Tobago is a risk that we probably want to look at carefully. Another question coming in here is a specific question from Denise, who unfortunately asked me privately and wasn't able to post, cut and paste it. She's asking, would exporTT fund tourism operators in meeting the requirements for the Bureau Standards Tourism Industry Certification Program? And for you, NEDCO, it's in the same breath, if a business accesses funding from NEDCO, would exporTT be able to provide support financing and vice versa? So sort of a hybridization of loan financing and funding.
Okay, so I like the question, because honestly, we have already been approached, NEDCO. We have been approached by the Trinidad and Tobago Tourism Company and the Bread and Breakfast organization to look at a plan in terms of how they go forward, right? So we are working with them. We have had a number of meetings in establishing what are their needs. What we have advised thus far, because we're in a process of developing the proposal, is looking at creating a full package of holistic services. That is the upskilling through our business training and advisory, and developing in terms of what we can use to provide the financing for that. So yes, we are working with them, and we said, and also the Trinidad and Tobago tourism companies working with them directly, because there's a need now in terms of how they market and encourage nationals to use their services.
Kristen, you have the first part and the second part, perhaps?
So the first part was about the certification for the tourism, right?
Yeah, from
okay.
Standards, yes.
So as it stands right now, any training that's co-financed is international training. However, I'm very glad you asked this question, because we are developing new co-financing services specifically for service providers. And I understand your point with having this certification, because you're treating with tourists. So it is exports, it's Forex coming into the country. And we will be open to considering that for the co-financing specifically for service companies. I want to tie that into something that I seen Leonard asked in the chat as well. Does exporTT have any partnerships with international platforms for the tendering process? That is also going to be at the same meeting when we're going to talk about the co-financing for service companies, and the question of how we support in service companies with tenders has come up, and we will have a solution in place to communicate to the MTI by January. Tracy, remind me the second part of the question.
That was just a response to the same thing that Karen was responding to, in terms of what are your thoughts on this kind of hybrid approach to funding, whether if they got funding from exporTT, how would NEDCO respond to that? And then I guess the corollary is, if they got funding from NEDCO already, how would exporTT respond to that? You know, so is there some sort of collaborative element? Are people penalized for getting financing in advance from another organization and then going to another one to sort of fill the gap or something like that? Is there any thought? Do you have a thought on that?
We don't.
Sorry, go ahead.
So we don't officially have that arrangement with NEDCO. However, on an almost daily basis, we have companies coming to exporTT, and I show vice versa for NEDCO, who have approached us both for services, and we kind of identify where each agency can support. For the grant fund facility, for example, part of what a company has to show is their ability to pay 50%. And that ability to pay, it hasn't come up for NEDCO loans as yet, but ADB was able to send a letter confirming that they are willing to finance via a loan for that 50% for the company that worked in their favor. So that's how it can work. What will make you unable to access for the fund is if you, and just making sure I read the right question, is if you go to a government agency and apply for the same funding for the same purpose. So for example, for standards implementation, if you come to exporTT and get co-financed for standards implementation for one particular project that you're doing, you wouldn't be able to go to another agency, example NEDCO or whoever else, export centers who might be able to offer that for the same project, right? Because, yeah.
So in other words, you can't sort of, try and, fill
double
up.
funding. Yes.
Double dipping, yeah.
Double dipping, as the term means. Okay, so NEDCO, I should have also added in my presentation, we also do entrepreneurial relief grants, right? So I didn't speak to that, but we also do the funding and that would be those who were impacted by COVID. And as Kristen would have said, if you would have benefited from another grant in another, any other government agency, it will limit you from coming to us to obtain a grant because it will double different process. But what I want to also go back to the first part of the question. In 2019, NEDCO, we met with exporTT because we recognized that there was a need for us to understand each other's products and services and better being able to help, because we realized that to the extent there's synergies in terms of the market that we serve. And we recognize that some persons, entrepreneurs, may go directly to exporTT, but they're not export ready. And in terms of like startups or those who may have just, not even started, maybe only operations within a year, but do not have the full capacity in terms of their operations to be able to export their product. So when we met, I mean, we didn't create a formal document in terms of our MOU to put under our discussion, but maybe we need to reconnect again and to better be able to serve our entrepreneurs. But otherwise would advise for the startups or for those who are in business for a while, come to NEDCO and let us work with you to get you where you need to be. For those who are, and once you reach a stage for the exporTT does provide the particular industry training that they need and also in terms of the finances to get them to export their product and service. So there is a relationship between us that we will probably need to meet again outside of this forum to concretize, right, Kristen? And to really better serve our sector.
And I want to, again, this is a question I'm posing to you, but I want to contextualize it in the concept of those who are asking questions as well, and kind of zero in on the digital transformation aspect of this webinar. There are a couple of questions coming in on, for example, from Kurt Sargent asking, how can exporTT help in generating potential and opportunities in the steel pan manufacturing industry? There's another comment coming in saying, can NEDCO and exporTT actually plan and run successful and sustainable pilot ventures as proof that the systems, training, and solutions being offered actually move from concept to reality, right? So we have that. And there's another comment, which you're actually not seeing, because it came to privately, is that for registered businesses or sole traders who are less than 2 years, and where do they stand in the NEDCO world? And I want you just to think of these questions coming in and just looking at it from the digital transformation aspect. In addition to answering them, is there an opportunity, you think, now? You say you're going to have a community discussion amongst yourselves for almost a separate or distinct digital transformation approach that would sort of, carve out a space within your existing arrangements and say, okay, the government has taken a thrust to focus on the digital economy. It's been in the budget. There's funding allocated. We're moving forward with this. How can NEDCO and exporTT support these ideas of all the industries who are coming in, steel pan, clothing, food, wherever, and saying, look, we want to do X, Y, and Z. But to do that, perhaps the way to do it is looking at transforming your business, whether internally to improve your processes, or to look outward in terms of exporting, utilizing online platforms. So that's a bit of a mouthful, but is there an opportunity there, you think, for this to happen outside of the traditional, let's go back to where we were before COVID-19, let's get back to where, giving loans and grants?
Yeah. It's a lot, right? It's a lot. I try and see if I could respond in as you say, as much as possible. Okay, so what we recognize, particularly for digital transformation. So clients who come in, or entrepreneurs who are interested in looking for financing, or even any of our support services, we are advising them now more than ever to have that digital process in. So where we would have not made it mandatory before, you're coming in to do financing, you're looking for advisory support, we want to guide you to have these things set up. So that speaks to your credibility of your business continuity, your sustainability of your business, right? So yes, we are doing that. In terms of so therefore, even in terms of your financing requests, it may include the funds needed to have those processes in place if you did not come in initially asking for funding for that. So we are looking in terms of encouraging our entrepreneurs in the entire having a digital platform. Also to, I know from iGovTT, the government, they've been working in terms of looking at various platforms where, and that is still a working process. So I don't want to speak too much on that if I don't have the full details, but where we can work with these entrepreneurs that they can now connect to have a platform to do business.
Yeah, my response would be basically Karen's. In terms of we do it. But before we move to our next question, Tracy, and I know it's not really digital transformation per se, but I want to answer Kurt's question about the steel pan. Under the grant fund facility, there's actually a separate arm of the grant fund facility called the Steel Pan Manufacturing Grant Fund Facility. So you can get information on that on exporTT's website or on the Ministry of Trade's website. Do a search for Steel Pan Manufacturing Grant Fund Facility.
Yeah. There was some questions on creatives. We have a relationship with creative industry as well. We've been working very strong with Fashion TC, and where we have been providing financing, training, advisory for them for their last three cohorts. And I know within November, there was the Global Entrepreneurship Week that we had a number of different webinars and sessions, consultancy to deal with entrepreneurs. And creatives themselves, they had some webinars specifically to the steel pan industry that was hosted within that GW period, because there is an intention to work with the manufacturers of the steel pan industry in terms of promoting our creatives. So as Kristen would have advised, they can also check on those sites more information.
All right, and I know we're running very short on time. We have just about a minute left, but there are a couple of questions still coming in. So what I would ask to do, maybe I can ask Gavin from exporTT, who is managing our tech, to put the poll up, so at least that answer before we leave. But before the end today's session, there are a couple of questions that have come in the chat. Perhaps, I don't know if maybe either Kristen or NEDCO would like to respond to them. There's one on import substitution. And again, just refocusing the discussion to digital transformation. What do you think about this idea of import substitution? I know we heard some interesting discussions about doubles not too long ago. There's some thought processes going on about whether or not we can, as a country, become self-sufficient in various products and services. Is there an opportunity for digital transformation and digitalization to work towards that? And if so, yet again, is there something new or different that exporTT or NEDCO would be looking at to sort of encourage this level of import substitution? And by that I mean, I'm just throwing it out again, sorry for being so complex about it. We're buying a lot from Amazon, we're buying from eBay, we're buying all these things online. And yes, we're doing it, we're using the technology. But what about buying stuff locally online and providing those, and I don't mean here about importing things and then reselling them, because that's something I think I don't support, but producing the same goods and, well, equivalent goods and services locally to sell locally, and ideally to even export those goods and services. So things like soap, craft, sheets. There are a lot of things I could throw out here. What are your thoughts on that? And perhaps even directing the financing and funding mechanism, so what's something like that, while the poll is being completed.
In November also, during GW, that's a Global Entrepreneurship Week, that hosted a webinar in collaboration with COSTAT, and it spoke to the opportunities emanating out of the national budget. I'm not in a position to speak all that now because I know we've cut the time, but there are a lot of things that can be done. And I agree with you, Tracy, that in terms of us looking at what as nationals that we can do as opposed to importing, in terms of creating, NEDCO and exporTT, we are enablers. So we will be willing to work with the entrepreneurs there. There are a number of entrepreneurs who have platforms who are that selling or reselling products. And we will encourage entrepreneurs to create a local Amazon, and I don't want to use the word Amazon, but a local platform that can push and sell products. I know that I'm aware of some that have started, be as successful or maybe not as national in terms of reach as they would like to, but there's opportunities for them to grow. And it's for us to really, at the end of the day, it's for us as Trinidad and Tobagonians to think local. I mean, there's always been the call for local. There's always been the call for standardization of products and services. There's the Bureau of Standards, there's Periri, who work with entrepreneurs to have quality in service. And any day, once the consumer feels confident in the product and service that it meets with them, it will encourage the conversation, will change the negative conversation of what in Trinidad is not good, and it is of a particular standard. And I believe that once we can do that, there will be more support for local products and services.
So Karen actually mentioned that there are some companies in the private sector doing that right now. One that I could just think of off the top of my head is the Market Movers. They deal with local produce and they do delivery. They have been increasing what they do and how they deliver over the last 3 years. And they were one of the companies who have, I don't want to say benefited, but they have seen increased usage since the pandemic. In terms of exporTT's support for that type of import substitution, we will support the companies where we can in the different areas of the funding once it meets that import substitution criteria. Of course, we have to be very careful that what they're selling is local products and not, buy and sell retail from international companies. But that kind of work is in fact supported, especially with the grant fund facility. And like I said, with the grant fund facility, it covers digital delivery and ICT enabled companies as well.
Thank you very much. And I think the poll has been completed. So thanks to those completed the poll. And I guess all that's left for me now is to end today's session with a hearty thanks to the Ministry of Trade and Industry, first of all, for organizing the session. I think the poll is back up. So please complete the poll if you haven't done so as yet. Ministry of Trade and Industry for organizing today's session, which I think was extremely useful and informative. And for those who have been asking, the Ministry has confirmed that this recording will be made available maybe within a day or two on the websites of the various partners. That is Ministry of Trade and Industry, exporTT, and NEDCO. I'm hoping the NEDCO will be in position to host that as well, or on social media platforms. And definitely thank you, Karen and Kristen, for all that you've shared. And I think it's really useful to, to have these discussions, away or maybe focused on the digital economy, because people are trying to figure out what to do. And we have the mechanisms here already. And if it is that we already have exporTT and NEDCO providing support, whether it be through training, advisory, funding, financing, and for those businesses, those MSMEs who are interested in getting into the digital economy and doing digital transformation, why not take the opportunity now? As we said, it's a great reset, it's a great pivot, it's a new normal, all those lovely terms that are being thrown around. To do that, take the opportunity now to make that transformation in your business. There's funding, there's financing, there's training, there's advisory available. Let's use the opportunity and reach out to exporTT, to NEDCO, Ministry of Trade and Industry, to ensure that you're well prepared for 2021 and beyond, because I can guarantee you 2021 is going to be the year where we see what shakes out after the pandemic. We have vaccines coming in, so there's light at the end of the tunnel. And perhaps in 2021, we'll be able to see those new MSMEs who have emerged from the pandemic with the opportunity to truly have transformed their business, utilizing the support that's provided from our NEDCOs and our exporTTs, and grow from strength to strength to become great exporters, earners of foreign exchange, employers of individuals, growing the business from 1 to 10 to 15 to 20, and to fill those gaps that have been created from the 2020 challenge. So I'd like to thank both Karen and Kristen one more time for this wonderful session, and encourage all participants to reach out to NEDCO and exporTT for more information. And perhaps I'll just turn right back over to you, Karen and Kristen, for one last comment on that, and then we'll wrap up and end. Karen and Kristen.
Okay, I just want to say thank you on behalf of Ministry of Trade for inviting me there. Tracy, you have been a wonderful moderator. The participants, we appreciate all the questions and your interest. You can contact us at 821-5800 or training@nedco.gov.tt. We look forward to your expressed interest in our services, and we are willing to modify or work with you to encourage your entrepreneurship success.
So I'd also like to thank Tracy for being such an awesome and dynamic host and moderator of this session. Of course, Karen and NEDCO, the Ministry of Trade, for allowing both exporTT and NEDCO to present on what we have to offer and how we can assist companies to move forward with the digital transformation, particularly in the given climate that we're in with the pandemic. And I want to thank Simi Siraj, who put this whole thing together from the Ministry of Trade. She, you did a good job there, Simi. So, and most importantly, I want to thank the 60-something of you who spent your morning with us. Thanks, and I look forward to hearing more from you. My contact info is in the presentation that'll be shared. So yeah, thanks. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you very much. And Chris, you took the words out of my mouth. That my final statement was to thank Simi and Garvin and all the members of the behind-the-scenes team who put this together. And certainly not least of all, to thank all of the participants who asked the questions, who have been listening attentively and engaging with us. Thank you so much for spending your last 90 minutes or so with us. And do stay safe. And certainly have a great rest of the day. And if we don't see you again, literally see you, we'll see you on the internet. And certainly happy holidays and season's greetings if we don't meet again. Thank you very much, and bye all. Goodbye.